All right. Hey, we hope you had really rich discussion at your tables. If you're struggling with any of the questions that we went over, I hope that you'd reach out to your marriage leader or another marriage around you that you admire and respect. Grapple with this stuff. It's good to grapple with this stuff. That leads to growth. That leads to development. That's why we're here. That's why you're doing Merge. And so I hope it was some rich discussion time, and I hope you keep the conversation going. Hey, let's jump right into our next 5 mistakes. So we're going to start off with mistake number 6. Blame your spouse as the main reason you fight. I sincerely believe that Louise is the main reason that we fight, but I can't go around blaming her all the time, right? So no. So it is an incredibly natural thing to have the misguided perception that most of your discussion or most of your fights are the other person's fault. We all tend to believe that. There's books written about that. We give ourselves the benefit of the doubt, and we struggle to give the benefit of the doubt to the other people. We blame. It's way easier. It takes way less vulnerability to blame other things or to blame things on other people. James 4:1-2 says, "What causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? You desire and do not have, so you murder. You covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel." The reason we fight is because we're selfish. The reason that we fight is because we want to sit in our own stuff and not deal with it, and we want to blame other people, and we want to do what makes us feel happy. We fight because we're selfish, and the sooner we can own up to the fact that sure, part of the reason we fight is her, but a big part is actually me, and the more important part is that I understand my own contribution to our fighting, the healthier that your relationship will be. Louise, you want to do number 7?
Okay, mistake number 7, avoid structure when conflicting. So I'm sure there's a handful of you, when you hear structure, you just, slump down. I personally don't like structure.
She hates structure.
I hate structure.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just feels really restrictive, confining. I don't know. But you can't look at it like a set of rules, especially within your marriage and within conflict. It doesn't sound like fun, and it's not fun, but it's good. Not having any sort of structure or framework will catch up with you. It will just be chaos and confusion every time you argue or fight. What'll it be like, or what can I expect? Just all those questions, because you're operating out of pure emotion and less understanding. So this gives a sense of predictability within different situations and unpredictable conflict. So what we typically like to do, what Ben likes to do and what we've agreed upon, or what we refer to as guiding principles. And that is just an established framework that we have come up with that works for us. And so a few of those that I'll share are, number 1 is slow down. So in conflict, you just get real excited and heated and you're yelling and it goes nowhere. You just get derailed. So number 1 is to just slow it down. And literally that's like your words, your tone, you speak softer, you speak slower, and that gives the other person time to really listen and for you to kind of calm down, so everything doesn't move at a really rapid pace out of control.
Yeah, healthy conflict happens slow, unhealthy conflict happens fast.
Yes.
Period.
And another one that we've done a little better at is whenever we are in the midst of something, our old tendency was to pull away and just leave it. Over time, this will get better. We'll ignore it, we'll forget about it, and then eventually we'll both come around, or I would wait for him to bring it back up and apologize. But now, we may take a break and separate for a little bit without resolution, knowing that we're gonna come back to it. And that may be a night or 2 or 3, but we still know that this is not resolved and we're going to keep talking about this until we both get to a place where we feel good about it. And sometimes that means continuing to disagree on something and not seeing things the same way, but we'll come to a middle ground to where it's just a compromise at that point. So those help us. Those are just two main ones we use. I don't know if you have any others.
Yeah, I mean, they're lists that'll change over time. Like if we've gotten to a point where we can't have conflict when our kids are around, which is a lot, right? But our fights get worse, and so we've had to learn, hey, this is a bad one for us. We need to not have this hard conversation if the 4-year-old is pulling at your shirt asking for a snack. It's not going to go well.
Yeah. So those are good to have. So try to look at it as guardrails. They're keeping you on track from veering off course where you get hurt, where it's unproductive, nothing is resolved. And there's just a lot of wisdom in that. It's good to have a plan when you're entering into something that doesn't have clear boundaries. So you know at least like, okay, when we get here, we don't always know what it's going to look like or how it's going to end up. But if we stay between the lanes right here, we know we're still safe and honoring one another within that. So
if you would have told me 10 years ago that my sweet wife was going to talk about how structure is good for you, I would have laughed out loud. It's an awesome evidence of the Lord growing her heart. Proverbs 18:13, if one gives an answer before he hears, it is folly and shame. So I want to talk about just a couple of things that maybe you could adopt as some structure within the context of your relationship that might be helpful. And so let's talk about some speaker-listener techniques. Rules for speakers in conflict and communication. Number one, speak for yourself. I do not need to say, hey, Louise, I know that you think that blah, blah, blah. Let her say what she thinks. Let her say what she thinks. This is, if you've ever done any Celebrate Recovery, you'll hear CR people talk all the time. No we talk, no he talk, no she talk. Me talk, I. Make I statements. I feel like I need to do this. I've been thinking that we need to do this. It's speak for yourself. Number two, don't go on and on and on. My high word count people out there tonight watching this video, you know who you are. Trim the old word count down a little bit. If you're going 10-1 on word count, nobody's listening. Nobody's listening if you're going 10-1 on word count. So trim that word count down. Number three, stop and let the listener paraphrase. It's so important to give the other person a chance to show you that they understand what you're saying.
And it sounds really corny, but sometimes if he's talking to me and I like say it back to him, like, so what you're saying is blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no, that's not what I mean. And so that gives him a chance to rephrase that so I do understand him.
Yeah, for sure. Rules for the listener. Clear the speaker. If you're the listener, this is exactly what Louise was just talking about. Show the speaker that you understand what they're trying to communicate before you give your own side of the story. It is on me as a husband, and it's on Louise as a wife, for me to prove to her that I understand what she's trying to say before I give my side of the story. It's unbelievably important. Only give your side of the story after that. Rules for both, one person at a time. Go slow. Louise hit on that earlier. It's so unbelievably important to go slow. The more vulnerable you are, the better. Vulnerability is so hard. There's so much to learn there, but the more vulnerable you are, the better. And no absolutes. Try to stay away from always and never, because those things are rarely true. It's a mistake that we make all the time. It was one of my favorite ways to pick on people in counseling when I used to be a therapist was when somebody would say, well, she never does this. And I'm like, never? Really? Never, not once. Well, yeah, she does sometimes. Oh, she does sometimes. How much? Like once a month? No, like once a week. Oh, once a week. That's not never, right? So let's stay away from absolutes. Mistake number 8. So this mistake's funny. When Finley first showed me the merge material and asked Louise and I to speak on it, my first response was, I like all of it, except I hate mistake number 8, so throw it out. Which was short-sighted on my part, but also shows that I'm definitely the pursuer in our marriage. But mistake number 8 is don't ever take a timeout. And I'll talk in a minute about why I didn't love it at first, but I think this is actually really great wisdom. So some of the reasons that you might want to take a time off or a time out is when you're hungry, when you're angry, when you're lost, or when you're tired. Those are good things to be aware of and looking out for. Louise and I actually got into a really fun fight one time as we got to a resort in Mexico because we were getting sold a timeshare and I was super hungry and I was a big old jerk to the guy trying to sell a timeshare to us. I was super hungry I was tired. I was a little bit lost because I was in Mexico. It was
just think about like a cranky toddler.
Yeah, that's what I look like. Yeah.
Well, no, I'm just saying in general. I mean, yes, but like in general.
Yeah, for sure. So here's some rules for a timeout, though. If you're going to do a timeout, it's got to be done well. Here are the rules for the timeout. Honor the request. If Louise looks at me and says, hey, I need 5 minutes. I need 5 minutes to figure out what I think about this. I need 5 minutes to pray. I need 5 minutes to do whatever, to go take a walk up and down the block real quick. It's my job to honor that request and give her the 5 minutes. Seek God during the timeout. This is a big one for me, and this is why I struggled with this when I first saw it. All too often, for me, sometimes for Louise, for you, seeking a timeout is, I'm going to go hop on Facebook for a minute. I don't know, you guys probably don't do Facebook. Maybe you're on Instagram, whatever. I'm going to go hop on the internet for a few minutes on my phone. Or I'm going to go text my friend and tell him what a big jerk my significant other is. Or my favorite, I'm going to go text my mom. My mom always takes my side. That is not what a timeout is. If you are using a timeout for that, you have no right to call a timeout. That is self-soothing, that is self-validating, and it has no business in a healthy timeout that's for the good of your relationship. Seek God during your timeout. Go walk up and down the block and pray and ask God to humble you and open your eyes to the steps that you need to take to reconnect with the person that you're in a holy covenant of marriage with. Or if you do need to talk to somebody, who are you picking? Who's your person? You know good and darn well the people that just always take your side or fill up your life with drama or whatever. Don't pick them. Go pick somebody who's also working really hard on their marriage, who's trying to make it work, who's trying to breathe life into their marriage and is taking their relationship with the Lord seriously. If you need to connect with somebody, connect with them. Go to prayer, go to the right person. Don't go to your phone, don't go to your mama, and don't go to your best friend that always takes your side. That's bull crap. That's not what we're doing, and it's not what we're talking about here. And the third thing is this: the one who calls the time out, which often will be the withdrawer, proposes the time to start up again. So if Louise wants a timeout, that's
3 weeks.
Right, 3 weeks. No. If Louise wants a timeout because she needs 15 minutes to go walk up and down the street and cool off so that she doesn't hit me upside the head with a frying pan, that's fine. It's on her to propose the time for us to come back together, and then she needs to honor that request.
And you need to honor the request for a timeout. I'm going to pick on you for a second.
Oh!
I think it was last week.
Oh, good. A recent one.
A recent one.
Yeah.
I
have no idea what's coming.
I had something on my heart that I wanted to that was bothering me, but I wasn't sure I wanted to bring it up yet because I hadn't figured it out in my mind. Because again, it just takes me a lot longer to process and think through things and, I don't know, get my thoughts organized before I talk to Ben about it, much less something like that could potentially be conflict because I'm already scared of that. And so being the one to initiate that is terrifying. So anyway, he could tell something was wrong and bothering me. And I mean, it was like, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? You know, tell me. And
pursuer trying to close the gap, not slowing down.
So I was like, I'm just not ready to talk about it. I need to kind of organize my thoughts first. I'll tell you, but I'm just not quite sure yet. And I mean, it was, I don't even know a great comparison, but he was not okay until that got figured out. And so finally, I was like, okay, here it is. I don't know how to eloquently present this, but blah, blah, blah. And it was totally fine. And actually, by speaking up, he was so gracious to like actually help me through that. And it ended up not being conflict at all. So, but if you do want to call a timeout, just each person needs to respect, like, hey, if I'm going to withdraw and need a timeout, then I need to have the courage to come back to that and respect his perspective on that. And as the pursuer, be like, she needs a timeout, and I can trust that she's going to come back and we're going to finish this.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, the ending there was good, but what we should have done is we should have, as a couple, labeled that and said, hey, it's clear Louise needs a little more time with this. So she's going to take that, and then we're going to come back together. So we were in our pursue withdrawal, though.
But we did it.
Okay, mistake number 9. We got 2 more to go. Forget that timing and environment matter. Timing and environment are so important when you're thinking about conflict and communication. It is our responsibility to become experts on the topic of how our spouse communicates. It is, as a husband, I get the privilege of being married to this woman. I also get the responsibility of learning her heart and learning what timing and environment is more conducive to her heart to have important conversations. When is she approachable and open? When is she stressed and potentially closed? And the same is true for her to learn my heart. In Colossians 4:6, it says, let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person. That's Colossians 4:6. Telling someone the truth is never optional. Method and timing are always optional. And so it is not an option whether I tell Louise the truth, but when I tell her and the way that I engage her and approach her are things that I need to be learning and getting better at over time. Mistake number 10.
Mistake number 10, never ask others to help. Always have someone you can reach out to. For this one, especially within the context of marriage and a relationship, Satan loves to isolate you. He takes down marriages faster than you can imagine. So if there is something going on that you feel like you can't share with your significant other, whether it's personal or between you and the other person, you need to start thinking who are 1 or 2 people that I can have, who I can call to be there for me, that I can let into this space. Satan loves to get that foothold and just nag at you right there. But there is power to speaking it out loud. It loses that power and that hold on you. And these are people, as you think through kind of your go-to person or persons, it won't necessarily be your best friend or a family member. You want it to be someone who has your best interests at heart, you and your spouses or significant others' best interests at heart, who is walking with the Lord in truth and wisdom. This is not going to be someone who just validates your feelings and your decisions wherever you are. If I'm making horrible decisions and hurting him, I don't need a friend who's going to be like, yes, you totally should. He was wrong for doing that, and he needs to wake up and realize blah, blah, blah. That's not the case. It needs to be someone who is for the covenant of marriage, who is for the relationship, who wants to see it thrive and grow and be God-honoring. And again, think of someone who's got some wisdom and truth. And it may be unexpected. A few years ago when we had kind of hit our low point and struggling as individuals and as a couple, a friend who I don't talk to very often at all, but who I love and really respect, she just happened to be there when I needed her, whether that be physically her walking in to wherever I was, bumping into her randomly, a random text or phone call. Like, the Lord put her in my path, undoubtedly. And to this day, I am so grateful for this person because she was someone who had a lot of truth and wisdom and didn't really know the extent of what we were going through. So that was really cool. And they'll be honored to be in that space with you. If you trust them enough to let them in there, like they won't take that lightly, because they are kind of in there with you in that space that is really intimate with the other person.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's really good. In Matthew 18, you'll see the scripture on the slides, but in Matthew 18, what's so obvious in the Lord's directive to us there is that we are to slowly and methodically let more people in when we're stuck. Satan will isolate you before he takes you down. It's what he does. And so if you fall victim to mistake number 10 and you never ask others to help, Satan's got you right where he wants you. Instead, what we need is, if we're stuck, we need to bring others in. If you're stuck, you need to let other people into that place with you, and they can become the person, like Louise is talking about, that the Lord works through to connect with your heart or to show you something. And what I love about what Louise just said is that she let that person in at that time. That person kept popping up, but it would have been easy for Louise to do that, but Louise let her in, which is always really, really important. So I tell you what we're going to do. In a couple of minutes, we're going to do some more discussion questions, but I'm going to do something that I have been doing for the last 7 or 8 semesters, as long as we've been leading Merge, which is kind of give you three take-home final thoughts. And these are driven really by 2 things. Number one, they're driven by my personal experience. And so what I mean by that is both my own relationship with Jesus and the fact that Louise and I are in our upper 30s now. Yeah, you're upper.
You more so than me.
Yeah, I'm a little more upper than her, but we're in our upper 30s, and to be honest with you, we're in a season of life where marriages are falling apart. There's affairs, there's divorce, there's tons of little kids that are being crazy impacted. There's tons of adults that are being crazy impacted.
There's a lot of darkness around it.
Yeah, and it's really sad and it's really hard. So that's one of the drivers. And the second driver is from my professional experience as a marriage and family therapist. And so these 3 thoughts are driven by those 2 things, and they're not light and fluffy. And if you find them offensive or aggressive, well, I'm not sorry, but I would be willing to chat with you about it. So, so let's just do the 3 thoughts and see how it goes. Number 1, if your primary motivation is to be happy, and you want to be happy, and that's what you cling to is your happiness, then you ought to not get married. Marriage is not a happiness vehicle. Now, I want to be really clear. I find tons of long-term joy from the satisfaction of the Lord's work and our work in our marriage. What that does not look like is my life in college when I got to play PlayStation and hang out with my buddies all day long. Happiness is not the goal of marriage. Marriage is very clearly in the Scripture a tool that God uses to reflect Jesus' relationship with the church, and also to be a tool that grows us in our respective walks with Him. So if you are clinging to your happiness, you need to loosen your grip on that and be ready to change. I was talking to somebody a couple of months ago that looked at me and just said, I really don't have a good sense of myself anymore. I don't even know myself anymore. And I gently but firmly looked at that person and said, I got to be honest with you, I don't know what that means, that you don't know yourself. Maybe it's a good thing that you don't know yourself all that well anymore. Because one of my favorite authors, a guy named James Clear, secular but all over God's truth, he always talks about if you cling too tightly to your identity of who you are today, you're going to miss the better version of you that exists out there on the horizon, and clinging to your happiness is a perfect way to miss that. So let loose your grip on that and be open to the good struggle that is growth.
Mm-hmm. And I'll put my 2 bits in. Just kind of want to brag on Ben. So he used to love to play golf and go fishing and be with his buddies in every home football game, a couple of away games. And before we had kids, that was great. But then we had our 3 kids, and they're all kind of in the fall. And so, I mean, for almost 10 years, he has put golf and football and camping and all of his hobbies and majority of his social life on hold to be present, like to help me, to be there with the kids. And I know that is a struggle for him because just like all of us, like we have those things that make us who we are and that are part of our identity. But he was willing to let that go, knowing that it was just a temporary season. And because of that, like he is an incredible father and husband, and he has grown so much professionally in his career. And I'm glad that I'm not married to the person that I married 15 years ago. Like if I was still married to Ben 15 years ago, like we would have a lot of trouble. And I know that goes both ways.
I was a lot of fun though.
He was a lot of fun, and you still are.
No, I mean, it's not that I don't do any of those things, but I do them a lot less often. And that's the season of life that we're into. And I would not be able to do that if I held too tightly to my own happiness. It's really good. Thanks, babe.
Yeah.
Okay, number 2. If you have ongoing communication or deep friendship with a person of the opposite sex, in my opinion, you have 2 choices. 1, end that completely, totally, and immediately. Or number 2, not get married. And I know that is not an opinion that everybody that's usually in the merge room with us agrees with, and I'm sure there's people out there tonight watching the video that don't agree with that idea either.
It's wildly unpopular.
Wildly unpopular. But in the last few years, Louise and I have had up close and personal views to a handful of affairs, and every single one of them starts with innocent communication or friendship. And so if that's something that you're allowing yourself to engage in, that is a path to destruction. It's a path to breaking a covenant with God, which is incredibly serious stuff. And it's a path to an unbelievable, unthinkable amount of pain. I don't remember, it was either Finley or Garland, but one of the fellowship pastors a few years ago was teaching on sin and talked about how it always takes you further and costs you more than you'd ever believe that it would. And this is so true. And so I implore you tonight, wherever you sit, if you've got particularly hidden communication with a person of the opposite sex, you need to take a long, hard look at the choices you're making towards marriage and reevaluate whether that's right for you right now or not. Because I promise you, the pain of dealing with that now is nothing compared to the pain of dealing with the destruction later. My phone right now, my wife, I got all kinds of text messages. One from Finley, there you go. My phone right now, she can have. She knows the password. She can hop on any messaging app. She can do whatever she wants, and I can do the same with hers. Because there's just wisdom there. There's wisdom there. You
don't want to ever have anything to hide. The minute you have something to hide, you need to check yourself.
Yep.
I know in today's world, it's normal to have friends of the opposite sex and be in communication with old friends who are male or female. And if you think you have that under control and be like, oh, it's just friends, we're just chatting, it is bigger than you are. It is so much bigger and so much more powerful than you are. Again, that's where Satan gets his stronghold. And it may look different for every couple, but be on guard always.
And we can line you up with a group of people that can give unfortunate firsthand testaments to that.
Yeah, and I hope that scares you. I do. I'm sorry, but it should, because it is very serious and very real and a big problem.
The last is this. I hope and pray for you right now that you're open to sanctification. So sanctification is just as believers in Jesus, the growth pattern that we go in on this life to look more like Him. And marriage is an unbelievable vehicle for that. I won't speak for you because that's a speaker no-no. But I think that she is a much better person, not because she's married to me, but because she's a part of the Institute of Marriage. And I know that I am a better person, not because I'm married specifically to her, but because we are in this marriage together, and it's produced unbelievable, the Lord has used it to produce unbelievable growth in our lives, and that can be rich, deep joy for you over time. It is hard work, but it is good work, and it is the right work to do. And so I pray that over you tonight. I hope that your time in the discussion questions is really, really rich. And for those of you that are with Sean and Mickey DeWitt out there, I'm really sorry that they are your host home. If you call Louise and I, maybe we could switch you up. I don't know. We'll try to do something. That's a tough draw, but I kid. No, I'm all of the host homes. Thanks so much for doing this. Merge is an incredible ministry, and God bless all you guys, and have a great night in discussion.
Praying for all of you. It really is. It's wonderful.
Yep.
Just got to put in the hard work.
Yep. Thanks. See ya.